Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. The top story as India-US continue trade talks and after the signing of a 10-year defense framework agreement between Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, President Donald Trump, while speaking to reporters at the White House, praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Describing Prime Minister Modi as a great man and a friend, President Trump said discussions with Modi were going great on the trade front. He made this remark during an announcement about a new deal to lower prices of weight loss drugs. When a reporter asked if President Trump had plans to visit India, he said he is likely to visit India next year. The United States imposed 50% tariff on India, which includes a 25% additional tariff for purchasing Russian oil. Earlier, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had stressed that Trump was positive and feels strongly about India-US relationship. Meanwhile, it's the Quad that faces fresh uncertainty, with Donald Trump not going to be traveling to India this year. New Delhi is the current host of the Quad summit, but no date has been announced, and Donald Trump says he'll be coming early next year.
How are the talks with Prime Minister Modi going on a trade deal? And when
going good. He largely stopped buying oil from Russia.
When do you plan?
And he's a friend of mine, and we speak, and he wants me to go there, and we'll figure that out. I'll go. I had a great trip there with Prime Minister Modi. He's a great man. And I'll be going. Yeah.
Planning to go to India next year, sir?
It could be, yeah.
Well, blowing hot, blowing cold, Donald Trump talking about Prime Minister Modi, lauding Prime Minister Modi when it comes to the relationship the two countries share. But in terms of doing what he has to do when it comes to enhancing ties, it seems like it's a downward spiral. Donald Trump will not be visiting India this year. India was to host the Quad summit. It is most likely that the US president will be visiting India next year. In that entire interaction, he also reiterated the claims that he made. India-Pakistan ceasefire brokered by him, and that he used tariff as threat. Listen in to what he had to say earlier.
How is the talks with Prime Minister Modi going on a trade deal? And when do
going good. He largely stopped buying oil from Russia.
When do you plan?
And he's a friend of mine, and we speak, and he wants me to go there, and we'll figure that out. I'll go. I had a great trip there with Prime Minister Modi. He's a great man, and I'll be going. Yeah.
Planning to go to India next year, sir?
It could be, yeah.
Okay, that's President Trump again talking about the fact that he is likely to come and visit India next year, early next year, which really would cause problems for India when it comes to hosting of the Quad summit. This is most likely the third year in a row that India will not be able to host the Quad summit. A summit level meeting requires all four leaders of India, US, Japan, Australia to be present, and Donald Trump will not be coming to India this year round. Rohit Sharma, my colleague, joins me from Washington. Rohit, mixed signals when it comes to Donald Trump. On the one hand, he lauds Prime Minister Modi. On the other hand, the fact that his decisions are not absolutely aligned with his statements. He's not coming to India, most likely early next year.
Well, I think it was one of those Donald Trump's off-the-cuff comment. He was slated, the US was slated to be in India this year for the Quad summit. The expectation was we still had time in November and December. And I think that was the reason that question was asked, if he was going to go or not. And he said probably early next year, we'll see. He's also committed to going to China next year in spring. So it remains to be seen how that will play out in terms of optics and whatnot. But the biggest story here is, Geeta, I think everybody had a lot of expectations from his visit to India, especially for the Quad summit, and maybe an announcement in person for the impending trade deal. So I don't think he's traveling to India. So even if there's going to be a trade deal announced, which could be by some people saying November, I think it would be done virtually. And I think that was one of the biggest takeaway from what he said yesterday.
But the positive over here, Rohit, then is that there is a trade deal that would conclude by the end of the year. Is there confidence there that they're moving in the right direction to have a trade deal conclude by the end of the year?
Well, that's exactly what a lot of people have been saying, Geeta. In fact, even the president said that yesterday, that the talks are progressing pretty well. That's what we've also heard from the Indian side. We've also known for the longest time that India had announced, or at least Mr. Goyal had said that there could be an announcement in November. We are in November. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, if something was to pan out, it might just be the time to do it. But again, we're not going back to the summer where things were falling apart. Looks like both the sides have made real good progress, and there could be a trade deal, for all of us to report on.
Okay. Finally, and a very brief answer from you on the fact that things are not looking good in terms of where they're going, but in terms of where they're headed when it comes to a leadership level conversation. He keeps saying that he's been speaking to Prime Minister Modi, whereas there's been no confirmation on that front of regular conversations between the leaders.
Well, President Trump surprises everybody, and sometimes, he, as I said, off the comments, there could be back channel talking. Maybe he's involved in those talks, but yeah, again, no official transcript as such. But we do know that he wished Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his birthday. There was a telephone conversation that happened last, and if there are a few more, that has taken place since, I'm pretty sure in time we'll find out.
Okay, in time we'll find out. Rohit, keep tracking developments from Washington, D.C. for us. For now, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Kazakhstan has officially joined the Abraham Accords, signaling a strategic shift in Central Asia's geopolitical landscape. Despite existing ties with Israel, this move strengthens Kazakhstan's role as a bridge between East and West, while boosting U.S. influence amid regional tensions. What's behind the symbolic but powerful step? Here's a report.
Kazakhstan has now officially joined the Abraham Accords, the US-brokered framework that normalized ties between Israel and several Muslim-majority countries. Now, the interesting part is that Kazakhstan already had full diplomatic and economic relations with Israel. So why is this a big deal? Why does joining the Abraham Accords matter if the relationship already existed? Well, the key word here is symbolism and strategy. Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev is visiting Washington and meeting President Donald Trump. This comes alongside the leaders of other Central Asian states as part of Washington's push to regain influence in a region that traditionally fell under Russia's political shadow, and more recently, China's economic sphere.
This evening, I'm also delighted to report that Kazakhstan has officially agreed, and that's official now, as of about 15 minutes ago. A tremendous country with a tremendous leader has officially joined the Abraham Accords. And I just want to thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor. It's a tremendous honor to have you. Really great.
Central Asia today is like a geopolitical tug-of-war rope, and the United States wants back in the game. For the US, Kazakhstan joining the Accords is a diplomatic signal. Washington is still relevant in shaping alliances in the Muslim world, especially after the Gaza crisis strained West Asia's diplomatic landscape.
You are the great leader, statesman, sent by heaven to bring common sense and traditions that we all share and value back into the United States policy, either domestic or foreign. Therefore, millions of people in so many countries are so grateful to you. And I'm convinced that your wise and bold policy needs to be strongly supported worldwide.
But why would Kazakhstan sign up now? Kazakhstan has always followed a multi-vector foreign policy, basically balancing Russia, China, the West, and regional Muslim-majority partners. By joining the Abraham Accords, Kazakhstan positions itself as a bridge between East and West, between Muslim states and Israel, between Washington and the region. And there's economic logic too. Israel is a tech powerhouse. Kazakhstan wants to diversify its economy beyond oil. Think agriculture technology, cybersecurity, water management, areas where Israel has serious expertise. But here's where the geopolitics gets more interesting. Trump wants to revive and expand the Abraham Accords, and this move helps him argue that his foreign policy blueprint is still alive and working, even in the middle of the Gaza war. The expansion of the Accords had been stuck since the conflict escalated. So Kazakhstan joining injects momentum. A diplomatic "see, it's still happening." And yes, the bigger prize is still Saudi Arabia. Trump has repeatedly spoken optimistically about Riyadh eventually joining, but Saudi Arabia has been crystal clear. No recognition of Israel without a meaningful pathway to Palestinian statehood. So, Kazakhstan joining becomes a quiet stepping stone, not dramatic like UAE or Bahrain in 2020, but diplomatically useful. It keeps the narrative running. The Accords are expanding, not collapsing. Now let's connect this with another planned meeting. Trump is also set to meet Syria's President Ahmed al-Sharaa, a man once tied to Al-Qaeda and even held in US custody years ago. That meeting, paired with Kazakhstan's Accords announcement, paints a picture. Trump is trying to present himself globally as the deal maker who can reshape West and Central Asia. Whether or not that works is another debate entirely. So what does Kazakhstan gain? Stronger ties with Washington, always handy when Russia and China loom large next door. Access to Israeli technology, agriculture, medical and cybersecurity industries. A reputation boost as a diplomatic stabilizer rather than a passive observer. And what does the US gain? A foothold in Central Asia to counter China's Belt and Road. A revived narrative that the Abraham Accords are not dead, and a way to keep Saudi Arabia engaged in dialogue even if quietly. Kazakhstan joining the Abraham Accords isn't about creating ties with Israel. It's about making a geopolitical statement in a region where symbolism is strategy and timing is power. With Farhan Khan, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
The Central Asia outreach and Trump's upcoming meeting with Syria's al-Sharaa on Monday speak volumes of Trump's agenda, strengthening its position in the region, but more importantly, resources, from Syrian oil to Central Asia's rare earths, uranium and lithium. On Statecraft, we tell you what's at stake. Catch the full episode on India Today Global's YouTube channel. The man once hunted with a $10 million bounty on his head by the US is now being welcomed with a red carpet by President Trump, who once vowed to crush terrorists. He is the president of post-Assad Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa. The man Washington called a jihadist is now Trump's newest partner. A handshake that rewrites decades of US policy, a summit that smells less like diplomacy and more like strategy. But what is Trump really after? A stable Syria or a slice of its reconstruction riches? And why, days before this high-stakes meeting, did Trump quietly host 5 Central Asian leaders in Washington, all sitting atop mountains of rare earth and uranium? Is this about peace, power, or profit? Or is it all part of one grand Trump deal? So what game is Donald Trump really playing in Syria and Central Asia? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Just months ago, Syria was still a pariah, its president a wanted man. Ahmed al-Sharaa, once Abu Muhammad Golani, was branded a terrorist by the same government, now welcoming him to the White House. But after al-Sharaa overthrew Bashar al-Assad with the help of the United States of America, particularly CIA, in late 2024, he reinvented himself, trading the AK-47 for a presidential suit. Trump now calls him a tough young guy doing a great job. Sanctions lifted, UN restrictions eased, and the world suddenly clapping for a former militant turned statesman. So what's behind this sudden US pivot? Redemption, realpolitik, Iran, or raw resource hunger? Let's call it what it is, a Trump power play. Because every time the world thinks Trump has flipped the script, he's really writing a new one. In May 2025, Trump met al-Sharaa for the first time in Riyadh. Cameras flashed. Trump called him strong, young, and attractive, the language of admiration, not accusation. Sanctions began to melt away. the US delisted HTS from its terrorist registry by July. In November, Trump prepared for the ultimate spectacle, a White House welcome for the same man once branded America's enemy. The symbolism is seismic. For the first time ever, a Syrian leader would step foot inside the Oval Office, not as a threat, but as a partner. The meeting was billed as a new dawn: reconstruction deals, counter-Islamic State or ISIS collaboration, and even whispers of bringing Syria into the Abraham Accords. But beneath the ceremony lies a harder question. What is Trump really buying? Trump's critics say it's about oil, and there's some truth to that. For decades, Syria's northeastern oil fields were battleground prizes, first for IS, that's Islamic State, then for US-backed militias. But the equation has changed. With Assad gone, sanctions lifted, and General License 25 signed, American companies like Baker Hughes are eyeing Syria's energy sector not as spoils of war, but as assets of recovery. Billions in reconstruction contracts now dangle over the desert, pipelines, refineries, and power grids waiting for investment. Trump's new Syria policy isn't about occupying oil fields. It's about owning the future of them, legally, lucratively, and under the banner of peace. And yet, one detail stands out: the timing. Barely days before al-Sharaa's arrival, Trump held court with 5 presidents from Central Asia: Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, in what he called a meeting of strength. The C5+1 summit looked like routine diplomacy. It wasn't. Trump's real prize wasn't regional stability or goodwill. It was minerals, rare earths, uranium, lithium, the invisible gold fueling modern technology, AI systems, and fighter jets. Central Asia holds massive reserves of these minerals, especially Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, and Trump knows whoever controls them controls the future. Trump boasted, "I understand its importance." Trump is building what looks like a mineral alliance, from oil in Syria to rare earths in Kazakhstan, a network designed to bypass China and outmaneuver Russia. Pakistan's military reportedly demanded $10,000 per soldier from Israel to join the International Stabilization Force in Gaza, sparking outrage. This marks a potential shift in Pakistan's historic stance on Israel and raises questions about the army's priorities, whether patriotism or profit. Watch this report.
What if your country decided a soldier's worth in dollars? Would you be shocked, angry, or both? That is the claim rocking Pakistan today. Reports suggest Islamabad demanded $10,000 per soldier from Israel to deploy troops to Gaza under the new International Stabilization Force. The peacekeeping plan, part of US President Donald Trump's 20-point Gaza proposal, called for the ISF to secure the territory. The ISF would train Palestinian police, prevent munitions from entering Gaza, and facilitate reconstruction without American troops on the ground. Among the countries supporting the initiative, Pakistan stepped forward. Defense Minister Khwaja Asif publicly declared, "If Pakistan has to participate, it will be a matter of pride for us." The country would reportedly send 20,000 soldiers to Gaza. Secret meetings between Pakistan's Army Chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, Israel's Mossad, and the CIA outlined the force's mandate: neutralize Hamas elements and stabilize Gaza under Western supervision. This would mark Pakistan's first indirect involvement in Israeli security operations. Remarkable, given Islamabad does not officially recognize Israel. Experts call it a historic realignment in West Asia. But then came a revelation that has sparked outrage. Veteran Pakistani journalist Asma Shirazi claims Pakistan apparently put a price tag on patriotism, demanding $10,000 per soldier from Israel. Israel, in what must have been a shock to Islamabad, reportedly offered a mere $100 per soldier. If accurate, this exposes a transactional approach by Pakistan's military. It raises questions about the country's so-called image as a defender of Muslim causes. The army's demand paints a picture of profit-driven priorities over principles, undermining Pakistan's credibility on the international stage. This is not unprecedented. Pakistan has a long history of what analysts call a renter army, from sending troops to fight the Taliban in Afghanistan for billions of dollars from the US to deploying forces for Saudi Arabia in regional conflicts. Financial incentives have often driven deployments. In 1979, Pakistani commandos helped Saudi Arabia reclaim the Grand Mosque in Mecca. Riyadh reportedly paid with financial aid and oil supplies. More recently, Pakistani troops were deployed for the FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar, coinciding with a $2 billion bilateral aid deal. The latest revelations have triggered public anger. Many Pakistanis question if their army is on rent or for sale. With tens of thousands of troops reportedly to be deployed to Gaza, the world watches. Are they peacekeepers or mercenaries? Pakistan faces scrutiny not just for the decision, but for the price tag attached to it. With Rajashish Kanjalal, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
What began as anger over exam results has exploded into a youth rebellion in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Gen Z protesters are now taking to streets and taking on Shahbaz Sharif government. Here's more.
Weeks after violent unrest shook Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, another wave of anger has erupted, this time led by the region's Gen Z. What began as a peaceful student protest over rising university fees and a flawed evaluation system has now snowballed into a wider rebellion against the Shahbaz Sharif government. The demonstrations began earlier this month at a top university in Muzaffarabad. But when an unidentified gunman allegedly opened fire on students, injuring one, everything changed. Viral videos on social media reportedly show a man firing shots as police look on. Furious students took to the streets, burning tires, vandalizing property and chanting slogans against Islamabad. The scenes mirror youth uprisings in Nepal and Bangladesh, where Gen Z anger has toppled governments. So what are these students demanding? It started with education reforms, complaints over high semester fees, delayed results, and a controversial new e-marking system. After a 6-month delay, exam results released on October 30 left students stunned. Many scored abnormally low marks, while others were allegedly passed in some subjects they never even sat for. The government has yet to respond, though the Mirpur Education Board has reportedly formed a committee to probe the issue. But outrage has spread, especially over the hefty rechecking fee of 1,500 rupees per subject. Now, intermediate students and teachers have joined in, raising issues beyond the classroom: crumbling infrastructure, poor healthcare, and lack of jobs. Adding weight to the agitation is the Joint Awami Action Committee, the same group that led the deadly May protest, which left over a dozen civilians dead and forced Islamabad into concessions. But this time, this movement has a new face: young, connected, and defiant. The same generation that watched protests shake Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka is now making its own stand in Pakistan-occupied Jammu Kashmir. And as the unrest grows, one thing is clear: Pakistan's youngest generation isn't just asking for marks or money anymore. They are demanding a future, one that Islamabad seems increasingly unable to deliver. With Jyoti Shukla, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Let's take a look at what are the other stories making headlines across the globe in World at a Glance.
Chinese President Xi Jinping attended the commissioning and flag-presenting ceremony of the Fukin, China's first aircraft carrier equipped with electromagnetic catapults. Xi boarded the aircraft carrier to inspect the vessel after the ceremony. On the flight deck, new generation carrier-based aircraft, including the J-35 and J-15T fighter jets and the Kongjing 600 early warning aircraft, were parked in sequence. She was briefed on the functional layout of the deck and observed the equipment and facilities. Explosions at mosque in Indonesia capital Jakarta that injured dozens of people during Friday prayers could have been an attack, officials indicated, with a 17-year-old student identified as the suspected perpetrator. Police said 55 people were in hospitals with minor to serious injuries. The US Supreme Court will meet behind closed doors to consider a pending appeal to overturn its decade-old same-sex marriage precedent. The appeal comes from Kim Davis, a former county clerk from Kentucky who refused to issue marriage licenses after the Supreme Court's blockbuster 2015 decision. Typhoon Kalmaigi has left at least 5 people dead and caused widespread damage after making landfall in central Vietnam on Thursday evening. The typhoon has also brought torrential rains, uprooting trees, damaging roofs and shattering glass windows of buildings in several localities.
That's all in this edition of India Today Global. Do stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and updates. With that, it's a wrap. Goodbye and take care.